we need to prove both to ourselves and to investors that this is something that people are willing to pay for. This is a real problem. I mean, we're a fitness app. Like, we are the tar pit of all tar pits. Our unique insight was like, there's a bunch of these things that do strength. There's a bunch of these things that do cardio, but everybody actually needs the center of those. And there's nobody that's doing that. That seems wrong. We've got like a Navy SEAL. We've got, Green Berets. We've got dudes that have run 200-mile ultras. Like, these people are insane. It was like impossible to turn them away. I was like, you're the exact type of athlete that like needs this thing. Help me build it. Because being a founder is lonely. Like, it's hard, you basically oscillate between like, we're so back and this is so over, like every day on repeat forever. But all that I care about is that those users come and they stick around and that they love what we're doing.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Startupper Founder Series, where we break down exactly what you need to know from successful entrepreneurs. I am here with Ben Katz, the co-founder or the founder of Hybrd. Hello. Thank you for being on our podcast.
Yeah, pumped to be here, man. Appreciate you having us.
Yeah, of course. So for people at home, give us a little background on what Hybrd is and give us the elevator pitch.
Yeah, for sure. Hybrd is the performance hub for the modern athlete. And the modern athlete is somebody that cares more about an overall picture of fitness and performance than necessarily one specific discipline. So if you think about all of your friends that are runners, they're probably doing some strength training too in conjunction with that. Your friends that are lifting are probably doing a little more cardio. There's not really as much of a single discipline only type of athlete anymore. And these athletes are tracking workouts on a bunch of different tools, platforms, applications, etc. Like, I myself am an anomaly where I'm a double wrist loser, much to my fiance's dismay. But what I've essentially found through both my personal experience as an athlete and also as somebody that has worked in the fitness space for a really long time is there's basically three camps of products. There's strength training products, there's cardio training products, and then there's hardware companion products. But the thing that I need as somebody that wants to get both strong and fast simultaneously and like promote this like holistic picture of health is actually the center of that 3-circle Venn diagram. And so Hybrd actually pulls all the data from all of your training across every tool that you're using into one place, and then uses AI to make it really easy to capture the things that you're not tracking currently. So weightlifting is pretty high friction. CrossFit and things along those lines where the workout changes every single day are particularly high friction. We use AI to make it so you can just snap a photo of the whiteboard or like voice to text, 5x5 bench press 225, 3x10 squat 300, like whatever it is. Pull all of that out, categorize it, and then quantify how all of those different workouts are affecting your body, how you're making progress, things along those lines.
Okay, wow. Yeah, a lot more in depth than I was expecting. That's awesome. So when you were working, obviously, let's back up and then we'll move through it.
Sure.
When you were working at Whoop and then Apex, it's a company that buys and scales apps. Like, you were working specifically on health and fitness verticals. What have you seen from an insight that made the most impact that you gained at those companies that you're able to utilize now?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that it's less about one particular insight or like aha moment and more about just understanding how people think about fitness and health and like what are the tools they use and how do they use them differently and things along those lines. Like, I wouldn't consider myself a fitness expert. I'm like a pretty active guy and I've been in the space for a really long time, but I'm not a personal trainer. I'm not a coach. And I think that there's a whole lot of people that are in the same camp as me where they're like, I've got a pretty strong foundation, but not necessarily like I am doing this as a profession. And I think one of the things that was pretty core to our initial insights were, those people are pretty underserved by the existing tools because most of the tools are focused on the more elementary type of user.
Yeah. Okay. I could imagine that for sure. Hey, everyone. Just a quick heads up. Today's episode is sponsored by Startupper, also known as us. We're in the process of building something super special for startups at this moment. And to fund the mission, we're providing high quality services like lead generation, design, and development. Please check out our website at startupper.xyz if you'd like more information, or drop a comment if you'd like to chat. Please like and subscribe to stay tuned to our channel for more information, more interviews like this. And as always, please enjoy the rest of the episode. So for growth in general, like because you were managing the growth of the apps, like is there any nuances that you
Mhm.
found within health and fitness versus maybe a normal app that might be on ad networks? Like inherently, what are the differences?
Got it. From a health and fitness perspective, I mean, it's a super saturated space. It's highly competitive. And it's probably the classic example of sell the benefit, not the feature. There's a million
Hmm.
different workout applications, but what you're selling to people is a dream. People want to get stronger, they want to get faster, they want to get fitter, they want to lose weight. And really making sure that you understand and nail that in messaging and build the entire customer experience around that is really important. I think that fitness is probably the industry, and I'm biased here, but I would say it might be the industry where hyper specific personas are more important than anywhere else.
Hmm.
Um, Fitness is inherently hyper personalized and very different person to person, and it's really important that you nail a use case for a specific type of athlete early on. Otherwise, you're competing with a sea of products that all look somewhat similar and do something similar. It's really hard to stand out.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I expected you to say. Something that needs to
Yeah.
be extremely personalized, like that seems exactly within your niche.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you were working within Whoop, like what I guess skills transferred directly over into creating Hybrid, and which ones didn't?
I would say almost all of them transferred
Hmm.
over. I mean, Whoop is of all the jobs that I had, Whoop was probably my favorite. It's a great product. It's a great company. The people there are amazing. Everything about it is really fantastic. But one of the things that is powerful about the way that Whoop operates and runs as a business is, they're highly analytical. There's a high level of
Hmm.
rigor from a data perspective on what is the KPI that you are trying to move? Why do you think that there is an opportunity to move it? What is your hypothesis and business case on how much you think you can move it by via doing certain projects and priorities, et cetera? And you would have to use all those different metrics to justify working on a certain project to leadership. And then be held accountable to actually hitting those goals. And that, is like what dictated your team's
Hmm.
success, your own career growth internally, et cetera. And it really changed the way that I think about a lot of things. Because even now, we talk all the time about we have this idea or there's a feature we could build or there are these things. And my first instinctive thought is, what are the data points that if I wanted to prove that this is an opportunity, what are the metrics that I would see now, today, that would indicate that that is actually a correct hypothesis or that that hypothesis is like worth testing, things along those lines. We're not at a scale where we have enough data to really have data backed insights on all those things yet, which is like this like weird frustrating thing
Yeah.
for me a little bit, but it at least shapes the way that I think about basically every problem. Is okay, like I'm like, you think about like I need revenue to go, or like I need more profit. Okay, you can either
Hmm.
increase revenue, you can decrease costs. How do you increase revenue? You can increase the amount of traffic, you can increase conversion rate, you can increase AOV. How do I do each of those things? Like literally just break it down to the core basis of how do you, like, what metric do you need to move, why do you need to move it, and how are you gonna move it, type of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Working at like a grown-up startup really helps like take you to that next level of think of all those different problems along the way. Consulting
100%.
background type of things. Yeah. And so when you're identifying, like taking the step from moving from that Whoop to here, like how do you identify if it's a niche problem or if it's essentially like a startup idea? Is it like versus, it being like an app feature or something of that nature?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a good question. And to be clear, I actually think that there's a lot of products that start off as a feature, not a business, but then can
I agree.
find their way and grow
Yeah.
into a full business.
Hmm.
Um, for us, it was really a matter of, we felt this pain point ourselves very, very acutely. And the way
Hmm.
that we knew that it was a real problem was we were like, okay, our whole founding team was tracking all of our workouts in a spreadsheet because there was nothing that actually combined all of that data into one thing. And I was
Hmm.
like, either we're this like pocket of the craziest people in the world, or there is a bigger market here. And so we just started talking to, we did probably 150 user interviews before we committed to leaving our jobs to try and build this thing. We
Smart.
talked to so many different athletes, and, at the end of every conversation, we're like, who's one person that trains this way that you would be willing to introduce us to? And then talk to the next person, the next person, the next person, the next person, et cetera. That helped us not only validate the idea by, like, one of our core things was like, do you track workouts in a spreadsheet or not? Because if so, like, this is indicating that there's a bigger problem here. But it also helped us get our initial like wait list as well, because you get emails as you go through. They connect you to other people. It's very hand-to-hand combat-y from a startup perspective, but wouldn't be here without it.
Well, amazing. That was essentially what my next one was going to be, about how you validate it before you build anything. So perfect. Within what, I guess, looking back from the 2,000-foot view, what would you do differently within your validation or idea phase?
Well, now I think that we could prototype 10 times faster than even a year ago. We were in our actually literally about a year ago was when we were like pretty seriously considering what we were going to do, and we were doing our user interviews, et cetera. And, I had some sketches and like some like PM art in Figma that were meant to like help contextualize what I was talking about. But the AI tools have developed over the last year in such a crazy capacity that I think that you're able to spin up like, I mean, it's demoware, right? It's not production ready truly yet. But you could spin up something pretty fast that illustrates the point. And we do that now internally to be like, here's the mock-up on like how I want this to interact, et cetera. Like, let's, feel it, touch it, test it, et cetera. But being able to actually do that and give it to, you and say, hey, Parker, like, try this out and let me know what you think. I know it's not perfect. It's definitely just a demo, et cetera. But like, am I on the right track? I think is pretty powerful and compelling.
Yeah, no, completely. Things have completely changed, especially within 1 year. So good question. Good segue. How did you build the first version of Hybrd, and how did you avoid overbuilding?
That is a great question. We've had like this vision for what Hybrd will be for a while, which is I'm very fortunate that like we have, this bigger plan on what we want to build.
Right.
The hardest part was saying, what is the bare minimum that we can launch with V1? And I can go into this in a minute. We did a founding member program that helped us ship before we were even really, really ready. But V1 was just like, there's all these things that we want to do, but let's just start with the core problem, which is just, we need to get all of your workout data in one place. And so that meant we needed to basically do two things. We need to have a way to track the stuff that you're not already tracking. And so that's like the AI logger thing that we built. And then the other is we need to have integrations with all the tools you're using. And so the first version of the app, all it did was pull all of your workouts into one app. And then it didn't have any like trends over time or any details really on those workouts even. It was just like, yep, your workouts are there. Great. And, super, super, super basic. But that was where we started. We said, this is the core problem at the face of it. And like, yes, it's deeper than just that. But we need to solve that problem first. And then the rest of it is kind of that's the foundational building block.
Yeah. So essentially get it off the spreadsheet into something else, which can be tough with API calls for different, like I'd imagine with all of your different integrations. Like walk me through that. How did you work through a bunch of different integrations, APIs that you had to work with?
Yeah, so we're actually super lucky. We worked with a company called Terra API. Their founder, Kyriakos, is also a YC founder. And he reached out to us proactively when we got in to YC. And he was like, hey, guys, like, A, love what you're doing. I think this is like a real problem. And I actually personally have experienced this myself. But B, he basically built the Plaid for fitness data and health data. And so, you integrate with just Terra, and then Terra integrates with Garmin, Coros, Apple Watch, Whoop, or like Polar, et cetera.
Amazing.
And so we just had to manage one initial pipeline. And so our time of go to market was way faster because we could just plug and play with him.
Okay, cool. No, that's awesome. And I'm assuming big positive of working with YC as well.
Yes, 100%.
Like introductions and things like that. Well, if he's also reaching out to you, for sure. Okay, so you're talking a lot about early user testing, early, like interviews to find out what's most important. How did you decide what would be kind of those first features from your MVP to like V2 per se?
We just focused on the core problem. We said, what is the what is the simplest version of this problem? Like, remove all of the extra frills around it. What is the most basic version possible? And then what do we need in order to solve that problem? And it's like, solve it from the most basic perspective possible. It's not like, what could I solve? How could I solve it in like 2-3 months? It's, what is the fastest version to market of solving that problem? And so the integration stuff was actually not that hard, which was great. But the piece that we like started on immediately, like after that, as the other half of our MVP, was the AI experience. Because, okay, we can get the cardio data. Great. That's amazing. But the whole value proposition is your strength and your cardio in context with one another. And so we're missing all of the strength stuff. How do we get that? And, we could try to do something that is similar to what, a Strong or a Heavy or a Fitbod or a Fitness AI, one of those guys do, where they have a workout builder and you can just, search an exercise and add it and the sets and the reps and the weight and search the next one, etc. We were like, I actually think that the AI tools can take a lot of the friction out of that experience. And I'm willing to place a bet, especially that the worst those AI tools will ever be is how good they are today. And therefore, as we continue to build and develop and grow our user base, et cetera, this is only going to get better without us even having to make additional improvements on it, which of course we have, but the core functionality is there and somebody else is improving it, which is amazing. And so that's how we really where we started, and we just kept building on top of that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that's awesome. So outside of, you talked about wait lists as well, like 150, getting people on a wait list. From there, outside of the wait list, how have you found kind of your next maybe 500 users, however many?
Yeah. So the thing I'll actually start talking about first is what I call our founding member program. And this was probably the best thing that we did in the very beginning. And so, we had this problem of, we need to prove both to ourselves and to investors that this is something that people are willing to pay for. This is a real problem. I mean, we're a fitness app. Like, we are the tar pit of all tar pits. If we're going to have any luck fundraising at the end of YC, we need to have dollars in hand, users being like, this thing is great, etc. And so we were like, okay, well, what's the fastest way? How do we get users to pay us next week? We wrote our first line of code like September 30th. Demo day was December 4th. We're like, we have like 10 weeks to figure this out. And so we ended up selling our first subscription on October 18th. And we did that. So it was about two weeks and change off of when we wrote our first line of code. And we did that through the founding member program. We basically said, listen, like, we're going to accept 25 people and only 25 people. And it'll be $200. You will get lifetime access to the product no matter what happens over the course of the next 5, 10, 15 years. You will get free swag. You will get invited to exclusive events, things along those lines. And we'll put all of us into a group chat with the founders where we will look to you for specific, like, we want to build this thing that you want to use every day. You tell us what you want and we will build it type of experience. And so we're like sending these guys Figma screenshots and like asking for like helping them like prioritize certain things and hopping on calls with them, etc. And, those core users, I thought it was going to be hard to hit 25. We ended up accepting 30 because it was like, we got, 70, 80 applications when I thought we would have a hard time hitting the thing. And some of these people are, we have, I don't know. I was a college athlete. Like, I think I'm like relatively fit. We've got like a Navy SEAL. We've got, Green Berets. We've got dudes that have run 200-mile ultras. Like, these people are insane. It was like impossible to turn them away. I was like, you're the exact type of athlete that like needs this thing. Help me build it. And it both like helped us from a product feedback perspective, but it also gave us our first product evangelists. And, you think about how many, it would be hard to quantify, but how many users came just from those first users being like the initial touch point of like, they told somebody who told somebody who told somebody, et cetera, like, they were our first biggest fans and supporters, and I'm incredibly thankful for them and highly recommend to anyone building to start with something similar.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I used to work within crowdfunding, and that sounds exactly like what you're working with right there. And to talk
Yeah.
about niche, like exactly what the actual features that you'd want to build is exactly what those people want.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm. Okay, amazing. So, since then, what has
Mhm.
been your best performing acquisition channel? Has anything flopped? Like,
I've flopped many, many things.
hmm well, that's
We,
test and learning. That's how it has to be.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. So, okay, so candidly, before I even get into that, I'll say that like up to this point, our entire focus has been on the retention side.
Okay.
We've
Yeah.
basically taken the approach of like, I actually don't care about top of funnel at all. All I care is that the users that come to us, and like we're making organic content and trying to drive users
Hmm.
as well. But all that I care about is that those users come and they stick around and that they love what we're doing. And so, we are now past that point, which is fantastic. And so we're actually really focused on this top of funnel problem now.
Hmm.
The bad news is that I suck at top of funnel. And so, we're figuring out like TikTok and organic Instagram, LinkedIn has been
Hmm.
surprisingly beneficial for us, et cetera. The thing that has been the most powerful for us personally has been what we call lead magnets,
Hmm.
which I'm sure you've heard about other people and other people have talked about it. Alex Hermosi talks about these things all the time. But we basically said, what is something that we can give away for free that our core target market will really want, that we can then use to get an email, that we can then use to like put them into a marketing funnel.
Hmm.
And so, for us, the core demographic that we're going after in the initial very beginning is the high rocks athlete. And so we've been going to a bunch of these high rocks events. And what we did is we made a high rocks analysis tool that is free to use, where you just drop in your bib number and give us your email. And then we'll give you a like analysis on your performance from a percentile perspective relative to everybody else. So like, I don't know how much you know about high rocks, but it's 8 functional fitness stations and 8 sessions of running. And we'll
Okay.
give you a percentile on each of those individual stations to see like, where were you strong? Where were you weak? How did you do? How does this compare to
Hmm.
other people? Things along those lines. And it's just totally free. And so we made a bunch of these flyers and then put them basically in front of every single urinal and on the inside of every single bathroom stall door at the races. And, it's been one of the best like free marketing things that we've done. And it's been, it's both a good laugh, but it was a ton of business value too, which is awesome.
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like that's how a lot of those things start. In front of the urinals is hilarious, objectively. But
I mean, dude, it's
if you're,
genius. Like how, like
yeah,
you
it's
have to
genius.
look at it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And if you're talking about athletes, especially in this high performance space, like what more could you want than competition to fuel the fire of free sign up?
Exactly. And so we've done a handful of little things like that. Like I made roastmyworkout.com, which is just like a little
Hmm.
AI thing where you upload a screenshot of your workout and it just talks to you for no reason. Like just like little stuff like that,
Good.
where
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
what is something that you can throw on Reddit or Twitter or TikTok, get some traffic, use that to get emails and then go and market to those people.
Well, that's awesome too, because I feel like usually when I'm looking at myself within a product, like I'm not the target market, but you actually are the target market. Probably makes it much easier to think of these like new features or fun little things along the way.
Yeah, 100%. We have a good time with like the little bits that we can actually then use to be like, it's like, this seems like a joke, but it's also driving real business value. And then you
Yeah.
kind of like get this fun dynamic of like talking about that too, that also drives additional business value. And yeah, we have a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, that's where the creative fun things come from, like, and also turn out to be the best growth levers. And it's a great,
For
great
sure.
segue as well. So when you're like looking at your future growth, how do
Mhm.
you balance it between early adopters in this niche problem to going to maybe a broader market?
Yeah. That's a great question. The way that I generally think about it is that, our core audience in the beginning is the high rocks athlete. It's
Hmm.
somebody that cares a lot about strength and cardio. They have one specific thing that they're preparing for. It's like pretty well defined. And high rocks is growing really, really fast.
Hmm.
The high rocks athlete and the CrossFit athlete train basically the same way, or at least they have the same core dynamics at play
Hmm.
within their training schedules. And so it's a natural transition or expansion of that core audience to that
Yeah.
next piece. I would say that the like next market that logically makes sense in my mind is the triathlete.
Right.
We are triathletes ourselves, but they're another multimodal athlete that needs to understand swimming, cycling, running, all
Hmm.
within the context of each other. How is that actually impacting your body, holistic training, et cetera? Then from there, runners, lifters, like we have to kind of see, like we're not even close to that yet. So it's like
Yeah.
what
It's a
people are
long-term
saying,
question.
what
Yeah,
people are
yeah,
actually doing, et cetera, will kind of define the next specific target. But we'll have built a foundation on both sides. Like we'll have a strong foundation of cardio, we'll have a strong foundation of strength and CrossFit and HIIT. And it's just a matter of how do we, like, where do we want to double down?
yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So similarly, what metrics, I guess, like if I'm one of these high level athletes, what metrics are you tracking that I don't realize you should, or something
Yeah.
along those lines?
Yeah. So I'll say that there's two things that we're doing that are like totally different than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
The first is what we call our Hybrd score, which is a quantification of your fitness. We basically take your strength and your cardio and we say, how good are you actually at these things? And we benchmark that against a number of different like distances or data points. So for example, we have like
Cool.
muscular endurance, muscular strength, upper body, lower body, like long distance running, short distance running, etc. And we then give you that percentile and like that performance picture both over time for yourself, so you can see how it's trending and is it going up or down? Is it going up because you're getting faster, or is it going up because you're getting stronger? Are those two things trading off against one another, etc.? But we normalize for things like age, weight, and gender. So you and I can compare, even though, we're totally different people, different ages, different weights, etc. Me and my mom can compare, even though she's, a bunch older than I am and a woman. Like, it helps make like this like fun competitive dynamic with other people in addition to your own self over time. So that's like one world. It's like this quantification of fitness and how is that actually tracking. The other is something called training load, which a bunch of serious athletes, specifically on the cardio side, track pretty carefully and religiously because it's an important metric. There is a bunch of different forms of training load in existing products. Strava and Training Peaks are two of the classics that have a training load metric. And it's great for a lot of different reasons. But the biggest flaw is that they are right now, like it's only based on cardiovascular effort. And so it's really just a function of what was your heart rate for how long and how does that compare to your maximum heart rate? And so that's how it's defining training load. And so it's only measuring cardiovascular impact on your body. But there's a whole muscular skeletal piece of this as well that is like incredibly important. If I go and lift, my heart rate might be 90 beats per minute the entire lift, but I'm destroying my muscles as part of that workout. And that whole thing is missed. And so when I'm an athlete that is doing a bunch of stuff on like the cardio side and a bunch of stuff on the strength side, something that is only telling me my cardiovascular training load might tell me that I'm like ready to go and crush it today, when in reality, I'm actually at a really high injury risk because it's just missing half of the equation. And so what we are able to do is quantify both sides of that, put it into one specific picture, help you avoid those anomalies where you're like, okay, this is super spiky. I'm at a particular risk right now. I need to tone it back, and keep in that sweet spot zone that is, you are doing enough to make progress, but not so much that you are at an acute risk at that moment type of thing.
All right, cool. So to bring it back, you talked a lot about retention early on. Give me a little aha moment or an understanding that increased your retention early in the product development phase.
Yeah, so there were two big ones, I would say. The first is that our first version of the Hybrd score, that quantification of fitness, was looking at specific movements rather than physical attributes. So now where it's, upper body strength, upper body muscular endurance, lower body muscular endurance, etc., it was previously bench press, squat, overhead press, 5K, 10K, marathon, etc. And part of that was because you need to be able to compare across these things and normalize for them, which is really, really hard if you're not using the exact same data set and data point. The problem with that was that there were a bunch of people who I would define as our target market who came in and were like, I'm never going to run a marathon. Like this clearly isn't for me. And so there was this disconnect between like, you can still have an understanding of your aerobic endurance and how that's trending over time without it being specifically called marathon or defined as your marathon time. And so we had to basically what we called abstract away from specific movements to make it a more physical attribute and characteristic based system that takes a bunch of different movements and data points into effect, as opposed to only that one thing that it was based on in the very beginning. And so that was a really big one for us. The other was like almost of a gamification aspect of we, having all this workout data in one place is really, really awesome for the people that are highly dedicated and committed to taking that data and actioning differently on their training because of it.
Hmm.
That is certainly a core group of our basic users, but there's a whole lot of users that are probably just like one tier below that, where like, yes, they care about the data, et cetera, but they also just kind of want to like feel good about what's going on and how they're training and like making progress, et cetera. And so
Hmm.
we needed to tighten the loop a little bit on, you do a workout, here is the impact of that workout on your training score, on your fitness, things along those lines, so that you get this tight feedback loop of, I do workout, fitness number goes what direction, how am
Hmm.
I actually doing, and what's the feedback loop of, I did a workout, now I need to open that app right away because I need to see how, like, what changed.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. The hyper user and the typical user kind of in combination.
Exactly.
Hmm. And so within pricing, health and wellness seems pretty tough. Like, how did you get
Yeah.
to your number 99 per year, right?
Yes, 99 per year.
Hmm. Yeah. How'd you get
um
there?
Testing, like,
Hmm.
granted, like, we're still doing testing and we
Of
will
course.
continue to do testing, etc. But really, we basically looked at it as, we plotted what are all the different players in the space, how are they priced, and where do we think we fall from like a premium perspective versus
Hmm.
not, and use that to help us understand where we're at.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Did you have you like tried free versus trial versus payments kind of along the way?
Yeah, so we have always been paid upfront, and then we added
Hmm.
a free trial to that in some cases. Um, we have not done freemium, nor will we do freemium anytime soon.
Hmm.
And the primary reason for that is the hard part about freemium. There's two big challenges. One is that you end up building for somebody that may not actually be the target customer that will pay you,
Hmm.
which is a whole challenge. You get a bunch of free users on board, you then have to support a bunch of free users. That means your infrastructure costs are going to be higher. That means your support tickets are going to be higher volume,
Hmm.
etc. And those people may not actually be the ones that will ever give you a dollar. They just like that free thing. And the second you put a paywall, I'll be like, nah, I'm out.
Yeah.
Um, so that's like one big reason. The second big reason is that the second that you have a paywall in place, where it's a like a freemium versus premium experience, you have to make a decision with every single feature that you build, like, where does it go and where do you put
Hmm.
the value and where do you put the paywall. And we're so early on in our like company journey that I think that's actually a losing game. The game I need to play is,
Yeah.
how do I just deliver value, as much value as possible, all at once. And like, I don't want to think about how to divide it properly until you have, crazy PMF. Um, people do it a bunch of different ways. My personal belief is you should either start as like paid only with free trials is fine, but like not freemium,
Hmm.
or you should start only free and just like go the exact opposite direction. But one of those
Yeah.
requires a lot more VC money than the other.
Yes. No, that's for sure. I've heard a lot through YC, people that have gone through YC feeling that same way about freemium. I'm assuming that's part of their, like advice as well.
We never actually specifically had that conversation with YC, but
Mm.
the YC puts a real emphasis on basically proving that people will pay you for what you're building. And so it's probably a byproduct of that, is that,
That makes sense.
everything is revolving around how many paid users do you get. And if you are giving away most of your product for free, those paid user
Hmm.
numbers aren't going to go up, which is going to make fundraising harder, which is just going to, it's just going to be tougher.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about YC. How was your experience within there? What did you learn?
YC was 10 out of 10, highly recommend. Um, YC is great for all of the reasons that everybody tells you it's great. Like, the fundraising experience would be very different without YC. Getting
Hmm.
advice from Michael and Dalton and Gary Tan is, like, what more who would you want to ask a question to other than them, type of thing.
Yeah.
And you get all these, like, to the Kyriakos point, these incredibly helpful and smart people reaching out to you just because you're part of the club, which is amazing. Um, One of the biggest benefits in my mind, though, is the group of other founders that are at the exact same company stage as you. Because being a
Hmm.
founder is lonely. Like, it's hard. You basically oscillate between, like, we're so back and this is so over, like every day
Yes.
on repeat forever. And it can be hard when, all of my friends are, directors, VPs, whatever, of
Hmm.
other companies making 3 to 5 times as much as I am at this point, as a founder. And it's hard sometimes to like be like, I imagine it would be really hard without the YC community of other people that are fighting that same battle to be the only odd duck that is like trying to do this crazy thing and be like, I've got my fitness app. Like it's just a different world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, in terms of things that I learned a ton. One of the classics is the like you don't need to ask permission from YC.
Hmm.
Um, that is, I think, something that a lot of people don't take into heart enough without it. Another is just the urgency that matters and how
Hmm.
much it matters. Speed is your basically only competitive advantage as an early stage startup company, and you need
Yeah.
to like slam that foot on the gas. Um, and probably the most valuable one for us in general was what ultimately led us to doing the founding member program, which is like launch way sooner than you think you're ready for and charge
Yeah.
money. Um,
Hmm.
when we got into YC, we thought that the first paying users we would have would be at the end of the batch, like right before demo day. And we got
Hmm.
in and Dalton was like, no, that's stupid. Like, I want to see paid users in like a week. And it just totally changed the way that we thought about everything. And I'm incredibly thankful for it.
Yeah, no, I'd imagine. Lighting a big fire under your ass for sure. Was
100%.
would you say that's the biggest like go to market thing that they affected on you? Is just
Yeah,
going as
I
like
would.
way sooner? Yeah.
Way
Um,
sooner. Way sooner than you ever think that you would.
yeah, yeah. It's good to have someone to answer to, that you respect like every week or every day to be like, all right, what's the momentum and how are we doing this and how do we show this?
Yeah. And I mean, it's also good to have, one of the things that YC does is what's called group office hours, where
Hmm.
each founder funds a bunch of companies. And then every other week, all of those companies get together and he facilitates a group discussion. Usually it's,
That's cool.
you go around and you talk about like where your company's at, like what metrics you're focused on,
Hmm.
whatever, what progress you've had, help troubleshoot problems with each other, things along those lines. And, those like you both like have this like great network and you make a bunch of friends, etc. through that group. But it's also helpful to be like, oh, I'm not the only one that's like really like this is hard. I'm down bad right now,
Yeah.
and there's a bunch of other people that are also down bad, and you're like, all right, we're gonna figure this out. And the camaraderie of it is amazing. Not to mention to have a bunch of really smart people to help you troubleshoot those problems is great.
Yeah, yeah, I could imagine. Almost half support group within there for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and so what advice would you give to someone that is applying to YC right now?
My biggest pieces of YC related advice are one, keep the application as brief as possible.
Hmm.
I think that's a classic that people like tend to like. You have so much that you want to say about your idea, like
Yeah.
you want to go on and on and on. Compress that shit. You need to. Um, Another one I would say is think very carefully about what is your unique insight. Like what is special
Hmm.
about what you're doing or what is different about what you're doing, or about you or something along those lines. Like think from the general, like the partner's perspective. It's like, why am I going to pick these guys? And we're a fitness app. Like what was our
Hmm.
unique insight? Our unique insight was like, there's a bunch of these things that do strength. There's a bunch of these things that do cardio, but everybody actually needs the center of those. And there's nobody that's doing that. That seems wrong. Like
Hmm.
that was like big part of unique insight. Um, and then I think there's a couple others that are like, you know, apply multiple times. I think it's something like 54% of applicants get in on the second or later
Right.
application, or 50. And so like, yeah, we got in on our second application. Um, so that's one. Um, you're probably not going to get in if you haven't quit your job yet. Everybody under the sun says, I'll quit my job if I get into YC. That doesn't exactly show the conviction in the idea and what you're building and like your ability to execute on it. Like, I quit my
Hmm.
job and I'm also just applying to YC. That was the biggest thing that switched between the two applications that we had. The first one, we were still employed. The second one, we had already quit our jobs and we're like,
Hmm.
we're doing this with or without you, but like, would love to be a
Yeah.
part of the thing. Um, but Yeah, I think
That
that
has a lot to do
it's
with the momentum as well, right? It's like if you believe in it
100%.
that much, like you're not going to have daily growths every single time if you're working a 10-hour a day job.
100%. The one other
Hmm.
thing I'll say that I think is helpful from a framing perspective is I think that a lot of people tend to look at YC as like their interview and the application process, et cetera, as
Hmm.
almost like this like academic styled thing.
Hmm.
Um, which like first of all, you should never do YC just because it's like a resume bullet point. I think that's stupid. But I think a lot of people, because a lot of the people applying are super super young, think of it
Hmm.
as like you're interviewing to get into a college type of thing.
Right.
Like that's not the case. Each of these partners that you interview with is a general partner at the VC fund that is YC. Like you are on their P&L. Like
Yeah.
they are accountable to your performance. Like they
Hmm.
are making an investment decision. This is not like a I want to sound smart. This is a show me the money.
Right.
And so, think about that as you think about how you're framing what you're working on.
Yeah. Total mental shift comparatively of like trying to get into an education base.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly.
And so take another step back. Obviously, within health and fitness, your productivity, like, savant, I'd say at this point. What would you do to increase your like personal ROI of efficiency, like per day? Like, what is a good advice? How do you keep yourself focused?
Um, Workout.
Hmm.
Like in all seriousness, like
It's fair.
get enough rest and
Hmm.
treat your body right. And, maybe you're working 10 or 12 hours in a day instead of 15, but like, man, those 10 or 12 hours are going to be way more productive than the 15 without the sleep and the exercise. Like one of the best parts about being a founder is that you are oftentimes able to dictate your own schedule. Like
Hmm.
if you start to hit that 3 o'clock mental block of I'm not being productive. Like sometimes you just know you're like, I'm being 30% as productive as I should be right now, and I just
Hmm.
can't get past that. Get up and go for a run. Like you are two birds, one stoning. You're mentally resetting and you're taking care of your body. And like you come back, takes 30 to 45 minutes, depending on like, what you're doing. And you come back and you're 10 times more productive for the next 2 hours. It's 100% worth it. But a lot of people just really lean into the grind culture of I need to be working night and day, all night long, all the
Hmm.
time, or I'm going to fail. And there's definitely something to the like you have to work your butt off in order to make this thing work. But it's a marathon, not a sprint. And you need to take care of your body and your mind if you're going to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And do you use any like apps or tools that kind of help you along the way with productivity? Obviously, not just yours when you're going and working out, but like something throughout your day that you think everyone should use.
Um, Not really, to be honest. I've used a
Okay.
couple different things. Like I'm what I want to be like I love the productivity tools. I love them. Like
Hmm.
I want to make them all work so so well, but none of them really do for me.
Hmm.
And so at the end of the day, it just still falls back to on a piece of paper saying like, what is the one thing that I have to get done today? And if I don't do that, like I have failed. I will not leave my desk until I do it. And then what are the next priority stack rank things that I need to get done? And just crossing them off as you go and, reprioritizing for the next day that night and just doing that on repeat.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm kind of the same. Sounds like there's a business opportunity that brings all those things together, kind of similar to what you guys are
Easier
doing.
said than done, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. Like
Sorry to boil it
I've seen
down
a
so
lot of people
easily.
try it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. All right. Well, then, like one of the final ones, I guess, what is kind of an under the table or like under the radar growth tactic that you're excited about that you're utilizing right now? Is there anything like that? Like what's a growth tactic that
Under
not many people utilize that you're seeing potential in?
I mean, I think those lead magnets are the one that I would say
Hmm.
is I think a lot of people sleep on it. Everybody just wants to go big on TikTok and go crazy viral, et cetera.
Right.
And like, yes, that's super valuable if you're good at it. I am not good at it, but just thinking about, like I don't know, being creative in how you're trying to make something that will drop somebody into a funnel
Hmm.
is underrated. Like another one that we've done is we go and swim. I'm local to Boston area. Walden Pond is a local pond where there's no motorized boats allowed.
Hmm.
And so every triathlete in, X radius goes and swims at Walden Pond. And most of these people are crazy early morning people like me. And
Yeah.
so, they're there at 5, 6, 7 a.m. And so I'm training for an Ironman right now, and my co-founder and I go and swim all the time, and we'll just drop flyers on people's cars, be like, it seems like you're like an early morning triathlete too. We're building a thing that athletes like you can get a lot of value out of, like check it out, like little stuff like that, it doesn't scale infinitely, but when you're super early, man, like hand to hand, like just make it happen,
Yeah. Living the brand helps a lot with that too. You're just like
For
finding the
sure.
people where you are, and that happens to be exactly who you're looking for.
Very helpful for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think that we're coming to the conclusion here, but we always ask this question at the end of our interviews. What is one thing that you can do to give back to the startupper community, whether or not that's advice or anything of that nature? Would love to hear it.
Yeah. I would say, like, feel free to DM me on LinkedIn or Twitter at any point. Like, I try to get back to basically everybody that messages me with like a genuine question.
Hmm.
I will not respond to AI sales slop, but I will respond to, I'm trying to build this thing and I'm like figuring out how to validate, or like, what were your thoughts on this strategy type of stuff. Like, I'll happily go back and forth with you and help you on that. Um, one piece of advice that we didn't get to in the conversation that I think is
Hmm.
worth saying
Yeah, absolutely.
as well is actually a quote from Brian Chesky. He came in and spoke to us while we were at YC, and he had two comments on fundraising that I think really, I took to heart. One was that he made this analogy where he says, um, like, I'm pretty rich and I go to the Warriors games all the time and I sit courtside every time I go, but that doesn't mean that I could coach the team. And a lot of VCs are sitting courtside watching founders build their companies and think that they can coach the team. Like, don't let them. And it's like, that's one thing, is like, you are your
Hmm.
boss, and like, your company better than anybody else, and you have more on the line for that company than anybody else. And so, like, stick to your guns, follow your gut, and really trust yourself on a lot of that stuff. And that's not to say you shouldn't ask for help when you need it. Of course you should.
Hmm.
But just, remember that it's your baby. Um, the second one is that when you were actually fundraising, um, VCs fall into one of three buckets. They're either negative ones, they're zeros, or they're ones. And you will almost never know ahead of time who is an actual one. And so the
Hmm.
only thing you should optimize for is avoiding the negative ones, and then assume that everyone else is going to be a zero. And then you'll get a couple of ones in the mix there. But don't optimize on like, oh, it has to be a positive one or else I'm screwed. Because a bunch of those are going to end up being zeros. And you'll say no to people that could be ones that look like a zero just on the face of it. And so the only thing you should optimize for is avoiding those negative ones.
Okay. And for the background of what a negative one and a zero and a one is like a bunch of those additional helpful aspects of like networking or advice. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Hmm.
A negative one is somebody that is like actively going to be problematic. You guys are
Yeah.
misaligned on product direction. They're going to try and micromanage you. Like, they're
Hmm.
not in your corner, etc. A zero is somebody that's basically going to be on the email list and is going to get your monthly investor updates and are going to occasionally make a comment, but largely just be silent. And
Hmm.
then a positive one is somebody that is, very thoughtful, gives you recommendations that are like actually useful or relevant, introductions, is helpful when you ask for things, things along those lines.
Okay. No, right. That is some great advice. I love both of those. Well, I really appreciate you coming on here and talking to us about it. I feel like I learned a lot. I hope everyone at home learned a lot. Thank you so much. And, good luck with everything in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I hope you guys found this helpful.
All right, cool. Thank you.